Hey YouTube, I want to talk to you today about a question my coworker asked me. Uh, well, actually, he didn't really ask me. He was kind of being smart. It's my boy though, so I didn't get mad at him. But I said something about the Bible, and he said, "Man, that stuff doesn't even match." You know, Matthew says one thing, and then Luke will tell the same story, and he'll tell it different, and then Mark will tell the same story and he'll tell it different. You know, how can you believe that stuff? So he was kind of getting on me a little bit. But so I explained it to him, so let me explain it to you. Because that is kind of peculiar, right? Okay, so when you look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and sometimes John, first books of the New Testament, you'll see that all four of those dudes hung out with Jesus for 3.5 years. They're his disciples. So they went where he went, you know, and they were with him with the miracles and helping him out and hanging with him, right? Okay, so about 70 years after Jesus' death and resurrection and ascension back up to heaven, um, they said, you know what? Jesus did a whole lot of stuff. We better write some of this stuff down before we forget. Because years from now, we'll be dead. And we don't want to let these stories not be told. So Matthew said, all right, I'll write a book about our adventures. I'll tell what I know. Luke said, all right, I'll write a couple of books, the book of Luke and the book of Acts, and I'll tell what I know and what I saw. John said, I'll tell what I saw. And then Mark said, okay, I'll tell about our adventure. We'll all write, right? So they're all writing their own book about their adventures. So they're all telling the same stories. So Matthew, for example, might say, yeah, Jesus got on to a boat and he hugged 3 guys and then he started to preach. That's what Matthew might say, for example. Mark might write about the same story and he might say, yeah, Jesus got onto the boat and he hugged the guy and then he started to preach. Maybe Mark didn't see him hug 3 guys. Maybe Mark didn't feel like it was significant to say 3 guys, right? He just said he hugged the guy. And then Luke might write the same story and he might say Jesus got onto the boat and started preaching. And you might say, well, Matthew said he hugged 3 guys. See, the Bible's wrong because Matthew said he hugged 3 guys and Luke wrote it and he didn't say he hugged anybody. Maybe Luke just didn't even feel it was important to say that he hugged 3 guys. Maybe when Luke was writing, he was like, let me just give the facts. Jesus got on the boat and started preaching. The fact that he hugs 3 guys is superfluous, right? It doesn't make any difference, so who cares? So I'm not going to write that part, right? So that's how you get differences, because different people tell stories differently, right? You might have, you might look in John might write about a story and say Jesus came to the house and he took off his robe and he sat down. Then Mark might write about that same story and say Jesus came into the house. He took up his robe and sandals. Maybe John didn't see him take off his sandals. Maybe John just saw him take off his robe, right? And then Matthew or Luke might write about the same story and just say Jesus came into the house and sat down and started talking, because maybe they didn't even consider it significant to talk about what he took off. They just wanted to get to the point. He started talking and then they started saying what he said, talking about what Jesus talked about. So that's how the stories are different. People just tell stories in their own way based on what they remember. And the dude that asked me this, a good friend of mine, I told him, what if a Cadillac, a dark colored Cadillac zipped down the street, right? And 3 of us saw it. I might say it was black. And you might say it was blue. Like, let's say it zipped down the street and it hit 3 kids and put them in the hospital. And the police come and ask us, what'd you see? And I say, I saw a black Cadillac hit those 3 kids. And then they ask you and you say, I saw a navy blue Cadillac hit those 3 kids. And then they ask another person who's with us and they say, I saw a burgundy Cadillac or a purple Cadillac, dark purple Cadillac, hit those 3 kids. Well, it's not that we're all lying or it's a conspiracy to trick anybody. It's just our perception is different. But it doesn't really matter what color the car was. I mean, I guess to some degree, if you're going to find the person, if it was a hit and run. But what really matters is that it hit those 3 kids and they're in the hospital, right? So you do see some things in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Gospels that are different. But I guarantee you, none of those differences are significant. Like if we saw the Cadillac and we gave the police the wrong color, that might be significant, okay? But in the Gospels, when you see stuff, he took off his robe and his shoes, he ate 1 fish, or he ate 3 fish, or he didn't eat any fish. None of that stuff makes any difference, because what the writers are trying to convey is the point. It's what he said and what he did and what he was about. Who cares if he ate 3 fish or if he hugged 3 dudes or 1 dude, right? So yeah, you'll see some differences, but none of them really amount to a hill of beans. So don't let that mess you up, and don't stick to that. That's just the way it is. Last thing I want to say about that, I told the guy I was talking to, it was 4 of us working together, and we had worked together all year. It was just a 1-year assignment. We were working together. And I said, we had a really good year this year. We had a lot of experiences, didn't we? We were working with some kids that whole year. We had some fights and some sexual harassment and some parties and some Halloween parties, crazy, different stuff, right? Award ceremonies. And I said, yeah, so what if the principal came and asked us, all 4 of us, to write about the school year? And I wrote down the school year, and you wrote down the school year, and the other 2 people that are working with these kids wrote down what happened in the school year. We'd all be writing about the same events. But guaranteed, if you read each of our accounts, they'd all be a little different. They're all going to be basically the same, maybe with a few differences, because maybe you saw something I didn't see. Maybe you observed something I didn't observe. Maybe you put something in there that you thought was important, and I didn't put that in because I didn't think it was important, or whatever. See, so when you read the Gospels and they're different, don't let that bug you. It doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't change the real message of the Bible. All right? All right, so I hope that was helpful. I'll do some more videos next week. I love you, and God does too. So I'll see you next week.